We're going to talk about the article you did, but let's do a catch up for those who are regular listeners. What's going on with your firm and your plans and your goals for the rest of 2020? What's going on?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I do have my own firm. For about 14 or 15 years before my firm, I practiced in essentially high volume business immigration, right? Which kind of relates to my RFP experience, having done a ton of those in that setting. But the other thing that I realized, kind of in the high volume setting, working with companies with massive immigration programs, is there's a bit of a gap in terms of services for high-skilled immigrant employees. Like, let's say you're working at Google, or not to name any company, that's an example, Facebook, any large company. You have great firms representing those companies, really great firms, awesome attorneys, but the ratio of staff, team members to the employees is just untenable. And a lot of these employees don't feel like they know where they stand or kind of the answers to their questions, and sometimes they get super desperate. I've had many examples kind of in my kind of sphere, right? So I'm working on a project to launch what's called Immigration Office Hours, which is basically an ecosystem for specifically devoted to high-skilled, kind of a top-tier talent, immigrant employees, working for really large companies, to support them with all their questions. We'll have lawyers kind of providing on-demand video consults. We'll have videos and resources and educational courses to help them kind of apply the rules and apply all the different kind of avenues to improve your life from an immigration perspective to them. And so I'm super excited about that. I'm still working on all the pieces, but have already started the video consults part of it, and really kind of pumped up to see where it goes. So.
That's awesome, because there's so many people, when they think about communities who don't get representation, it's usually always related to the border, asylum, or humanitarian kind of stuff. But there's frankly a huge component of employment-based people, applicants who have the employer, have the lawyer, and all this kind of stuff, but they're maybe too shy to ask them, might be too personal, and sometimes the attorneys don't have the time because they're doing a million cases. And so having that personal attention is key, and letting know it's there, like they could even get their own attorney. They might not even realize that many of the times. And there's other complex issues of what if they want to talk about 45J portability kind of stuff. They're they can't talk about the employer. So it's so important to have a place that they're comfortable going, aside from these forums and these websites which don't have reliable information.
Well, the law firms, exactly. The law firms that represent these companies, like, I feel for them. Like, they're in a bind, right? Like, not only do they necessarily have like the bandwidth to kind of address all the questions that are coming into them, there is kind of this whole issue of dual representation, which really is not a huge deal kind of when you're a smaller company and your staff has the ability just to kind of work with the company, work with the employee. It's not a big deal. But as you get bigger and you get higher volume, I feel like the structure or like the weaknesses of that dual representation structure really kind of show, right? And so I just feel like it would be a help to the law firms to have somebody kind of coming in, helping the employees with their own personal questions.
Yeah,
like a lot off their plate as well. I feel like it's a win-win for everybody, honestly. And so I'm excited to kind of give it a go. Like you said, these online forums that people go to, they've only gotten worse. I mean, maybe 10 years ago, we used to talk about online forums. Now they're Facebook groups with 150,000 plus people asking each other questions, which can be a recipe for disaster. So hopefully, we can get a handle on that and help these people out.
Yeah, and your model is going to be great for other people who do other practices, for people for these communities that don't have representation. It can not only be for legal specific stuff, like maybe for asylum or humanitarian, but it could be ethnic groups too who don't speak the language. Just really just pushing these niche aspect for marketing to connect with these groups so you can develop the representation or advice that's needed. So that's really awesome that you're doing that. Big four or five, whatever it is, coming in. Well, I just kind of wait and see to that. I just want to talk about it briefly. I mean, we're seeing them grow in Canada, particularly. I keep seeing job positions, associate positions, paralegals opening up, and they're going to come here. I have this chart I made, and I have to republish the updated version of the biggest law firms by immigration lawyer count. And originally, when I made the chart, and it got a lot of attention on LinkedIn, but I realized I didn't put any of the Canadian companies, not Canadian, but like the county companies, because I just didn't want to calculate that or put into the calculations. And I'm trying to look right now. I wasn't expecting to talk about this, but once I put it up in there, I mean, the number four will be EY. Ernst & Young becomes number 4. Number 7 by size becomes PwC. and Deloitte potentially number 16. I couldn't find good information. There's another one in there that it depends on if they list their company. So these are major players in the immigration space already based on lawyer count. Now, their lawyers are in Canada, but I started counting that anyways. And obviously, Fragment, Barry Alphen Leiden, Ogletree are 1, 2, and 3 on my list with size of immigration lawyers. But it's a they're a big player in this that can really affect things. Probably touching upon the big size firms first before it goes to solo and small like marriage case, but they'll come there too. If not them, it's the technology. So we're seeing a huge reshaping of the business happening the next 10 years. How do you see this kind of stuff from your perch?
Yeah, it's definitely interesting to watch. I would say, the big 4 or 5, however many there are, they've been in the game for several years now. Out of Canada, and they are interesting because they have these very well defined. Like they're great. What are they great at? They're great at business processes, right? Like they're super great at kind of efficiency and technology and those kinds of things as consultants by nature. And that lends itself to being really, really good at high volume immigration. So they're coming in and they're playing a big role and are huge competitors kind of in the high volume immigration game, right? I don't think mobility, global mobility as a department within HR is immigration and tax and relocation, right? And so they also play a huge role in tax. I don't think they're able to consolidate tax and immigration for one company. There may be kind of conflict issues from a kind of Sarbanes-Oxley or accounting perspective, but they do have that kind of mobility know-how because of their involvement in tax, and that's also very, very appealing to large departments. So they're a big player, yeah.
And they have technology already for communication stuff. The technology thing is a major factor that I didn't consider before, but these companies, as you mentioned, for them, it's really important that you have certain form software providers that you go through and Windows and stuff. So you're seeing a lot of big companies that are not creating their own internal stuff. I was watching an interview with I think it was Barry Leiden, where the managing partner, he was on Roman's podcast, and Roman Zelechenko, and he was talking about the systems they developed over the years. Wolfsdorf here, they're a smaller size. They're not small, really. They're number 11, 37 immigration lawyers. Yeah. They have their own software they created that they put out there. But this is crazy how software is a key feature. It's going to trickle down to smaller firms.